pushing climate change, giving it the impulse, the political impulse, goes to the IPCC, which over the years, through its assessments, has become more and more confident in what it's saying about the human impact on climate change. Always prudent, but more and more confident, a very strong signal. It's made some mistakes, it's learned the hard way that it has to tighten up its processes, it's learned about the virtues of transparency, but overall it is widely accepted as the source of the best available scientific advice as a basis for political judgment. And my favorite testimonial to the IPCC, as I like to quote, comes from an unlikely source, from the homeland of what is called climate skepticism. When President George W. Bush launched the Major Economies Forum in 2007, referring to science, he said, "Our understanding has come a long way." I thought that was rather neat. It was he who had rejected Kyoto partly on grounds of science, and he recognized that things had moved along, and he took that on board. With this backing, one would have expected perhaps greater progress, greater political progress in the negotiations. They started off well. The first IPCC assessment underpinned the negotiation of the convention very quickly, in 15 months, 1991 to 92. The second assessment was the springboard for the Berlin Mandate leading to the Kyoto Protocol. That was about 30 months, 95 to 97. But then the Kyoto Protocol stumbled. It was never presented by the US administration to the Senate, and as I said, President Bush pulled out. And that, I think, 2001 is the start of the long and winding road, long and climbing road, certainly, in search of a comprehensive, ambitious and fair agreement that still eludes us. So, some thoughts on what have been the stumbling blocks along the way. First, a couple of fundamentals, I think, inherent to the issue itself. I've used, since Ed was in the sports business at one point, two sporting type of metaphors. One is that science does not fix the doorposts, and the second is that the economics favor a defensive game. On science, it's very important to recognize what the IPCC does not do. It doesn't make recommendations, it doesn't make political judgments. It presents scenarios, but what it does not define is what is the dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system that the Convention on Climate Change seeks to prevent. That is the objective of the Convention, and science does not define it, because the risk has to be assessed by the people at the other end of it. So it tells us what certain emissions will result in over the years, but it doesn't say which target to choose. The choice between a global warming limit of 2 degrees centigrade, which is now in the conference documents, or 1.5, as some would wish it to be, is not a scientific choice, it's a political choice. And I think that's a very important point. As is the question of which country or group should do what to achieve a certain global aim. So climate change becomes a danger in the eye of the beholder. It, how can I say, the national assessments of vulnerability vary according to coping capacity, which are poor, geography, Maldives or Russia, and a sense of how far to go into the future in assessing costs, the interests of future generations, which was the title of the agenda item that Malta put there, something about the common interest of mankind. There's something of future generations anyway. But because of this difference of assessment, there is no common motivation to act now. The motivations vary. To use the convention jargon, you could say there's a common but differentiated motivation. And given that, it's difficult for the whole of the negotiation to move forward, to find the sort of quid pro quos that you would find in a trade negotiation, in a disarmament negotiation, to find a tendency to convergence. It's very, very difficult.